I never thought winning the lottery would change how I see my own family. 2 months ago, I was just Sandy Harmon, the quiet nurse who patched scraped knees and wiped tears without making a fuss about it. I'm 33 now, 10 years into pediatric nursing, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the invisible backbone of my family. While my parents, my brother, and especially Dolores, my cousin, clamored for attention and praise, I was the one steadying the ship, paying bills, making sacrifices no one ever noticed. Just last month, I quietly wired $200 to cover the late mortgage payment on the old lake house, a place the whole family loves but no one seems to treat like their own. Not a word was said. Dolores, who's always the loudest voice at every gathering, suddenly appeared the day my ticket hit 2.3 million. She smiled that sharp, calculating smile and said, "Family shares everything, right?" I smiled back, but inside I was wary. Does family really mean more than money? I carry a secret. The deed to the lake house is in my name, a fact no one knows. For now, I hold on to hope that loyalty still matters more than dollars. But the tension is thick, and I can feel it pressing down on me. I still remember that Christmas when I was 12, like it was yesterday. Dad handed Dolores a shiny new bike, the exact one I'd been dreaming about all year, while I got a worn-out secondhand sweater. Mom just smiled and said, "Dolores is special." That moment planted a deep seed of favoritism I could never shake. I told myself it was just their way of showing love, though my heart ached. Every other family milestone only made the divide clearer. Dad missed my basketball games without excuse, but never missed a chance to cheer Dolores on. Graduation day was no different. He was off on a business trip. Even at my wedding, his calls came late and distracted. Meanwhile, Dolores soaked up every spotlight, laughing and basking in their attention. I tried to brush it off, telling myself, someday, they'll see me. But the sting of that morning still lingers. The raw, unspoken message that I was never quite enough. It's a wound I've carried silently, buried beneath my steady smile. Over the years, I've given quietly, never seeking thanks. $15,000 toward the lake house mortgage, unpaid in installments over 5 years. Medical bills for Mom when she lost her job, covered without a word. I canceled my vacation plans more times than I can count to care for my aging grandparents. To everyone else, these were obligations. The expected roles of the good cousin or responsible daughter. Dolores once sneered, "Sandy always playing the good cousin, huh?" Her words stung, but I shrugged them off. Daniel, my husband, watches all this with growing concern. "You deserve recognition, not silence," he tells me, his voice soft but firm. There's a secret I haven't shared. Grandpa left the lake house deed in my name. I've held back from using that power, hoping for peace and family unity instead. Yet, as we gather at the lake house, the tension is palpable. Dolores's eyes flick toward me more sharply, a silent challenge beneath her forced smiles. The house feels less like a refuge and more like a stage where I'm expected to play the part. It all came to a head at Aunt Martha's birthday dinner. We were sitting around the long table, candles flickering, laughter mingling with the clink of glasses, when Dolores dropped the bomb. Loud enough for everyone to hear, she said, "Funny how Sandy's the nurse, but can't mend family ties or even her own luck." The room went dead silent. I felt my cheeks burn, an icy wave crashing over me. My heartbeat thundered painfully in my ears as I fought back the urge to lash out. Instead, I whispered, "Maybe you're just jealous." I stood and excused myself, stepping out into the cool night air, gasping for breath. I pressed my hands to my chest, trying to steady the tremor in my voice. Inside, I told myself she must be stressed or bitter, that she didn't mean it. But a seed of doubt had taken root deep inside me. For the first time, I realized I was no longer just overlooked. I was a target. The family I held together might be unraveling right before my eyes, and I wasn't sure what I would do next. Dolores noticed the flicker of resistance in my eyes the moment I refused to let her jab slide. The next morning, subtle poison seeped into the air around me. Whispers began, soft but persistent. Claims that I was stingy with the lottery money, aloof at family gatherings, even selfish when anyone needed help. I overheard snatches of conversation when I thought no one was watching. "She's changed," someone said. "Maybe the money got to her head." Dolores spun her stories like a spider weaving a web, each thread designed to isolate me. Family members who once greeted me warmly started hesitating, their smiles tight and forced. A few distant cousins even called with veiled concern, asking if I was okay because I seemed different. Their words felt like knives twisting, and I wasn't sure if they were meant to comfort or condemn. When I confronted Dolores, she wore that sickly sweet expression, the one that's always hidden something sharp beneath. "You're overreacting, Sandy," she said, voice dripping with false kindness. "You've always been too sensitive. Maybe you're the one making this bigger than it is." The sting of her words knotted deep within me. Slowly, I felt the walls closing in, the warmth of family slipping away like sand through my fingers. Even Daniel's cousin, who used to share jokes with me, now avoided eye contact at gatherings. I caught myself wondering, late at night when silence pressed hard against my chest, if maybe I was the one misreading everything. Was I imagining the hostility? Was I really becoming the person they whispered about? The doubt gnawed at me, but the ache of betrayal burned brighter. Determined not to allow this to shred what little peace we had left, I took a breath and asked for a family meeting. I wanted to clear the air, to show them the years I'd spent giving quietly, the sacrifices made without applause. Sitting across from Dolores and Mom, I spoke calmly, my voice steady but soft. "I've done everything I could for this family," I said, eyes locking with theirs. "I didn't ask for recognition, but this bitterness, this unfairness, it's tearing us apart." I hoped my words would reach them, break through the fog Dolores had cast. Dolores's response was a performance, tears wetting her cheeks, trembling lips painting herself as the wounded party. "Sandy's always been cold, distant," she said, voice cracking like a well-rehearsed script. "She never cared about anyone but herself." Mom nodded, eyes glossy with sympathy, dismissing my feelings with a tired sigh. "You're both family," she said. "Sometimes we just have to forgive and move on." The pastor, who acted as our mediator, echoed Mom's sentiments, urging harmony and letting go of grudges. I left the room feeling small, dismissed, as if my pain was nothing but noise. My hope for peace dimmed, but I clung to the fragile idea that maybe, someday, things could still change. Weeks passed, and the shadows Dolores cast grew darker. One afternoon, whispers reached my hospital that I had once missed a shift during a family emergency, an incident no one else knew about. Dolores had leaked it, twisting the story to imply I was unreliable and selfish at work. I felt the cold eyes of coworkers lingering longer than usual, their smiles tight, their trust fraying. Daniel's promotion, once a sure thing, suddenly seemed uncertain, as rumors linked his career with the family drama. It wasn't just personal anymore. Dolores's venom had seeped into my professional life. At a community fundraiser, the final blow came in the form of a public confrontation. Dolores cornered me in front of neighbors and hospital staff, her voice loud and scornful. "Maybe if you weren't so busy playing the victim, you'd get ahead," she sneered, eyes blazing with cruel satisfaction. The humiliation was raw and deep, slicing through years of hard work and dedication I had built. I felt every eye on me, judging, doubting. This was no accident. It was a calculated attempt to dismantle everything I'd fought for. My heart pounded with a mix of shame and anger, but I stood my ground, refusing to let her see me crumble. Despite everything, I reached out to Dolores one last time, hoping to salvage what little remained. I asked to meet privately, my voice steady but vulnerable. "I want to understand you," I said, laying my feelings bare. "I want us to be family again. We don't have to be enemies." Her smile was thin and cold, eyes calculating. "You think you know what's at stake, Sandy," she said, voice low and threatening. "But you have no idea." That night, she sent a group text casting me as a manipulative liar, accusing me of scheming for money. The line was crossed. It was no longer about family, but destruction. I realized then, with a sinking heart, that I had done everything I could. Dolores had chosen to tear us apart, and all I could do was brace for what came next. The days that followed felt like I was sinking into quicksand. Every step forward pulled me deeper into loneliness. More and more family members drifted away from me, their smiles unfamiliar, their glances sharp with judgment. At gatherings, I was somehow both present and invisible. Whispers filled the corners where I used to belong, and invitations became scarce until they stopped altogether. The warmth I once felt around those I loved turned cold and distant. Daniel remained my constant, but even he suggested gently, "Maybe you need to step back, Sandy, for your own peace." His words cut deeper than he knew. I stared at my reflection late one night, haggard eyes, a face drained of its usual glow, and wondered if maybe I really was the problem. Was I too quiet, too giving, too blind to their resentments? The questions churned endlessly in my mind, each thought heavier than the last. I felt exhausted in every fiber of my being, the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest like a silent storm. The house, once a refuge, now felt like a cage, where every corner held a memory of rejection. The more I tried to reach out, the more I was met with cold shoulders or forced smiles. I replayed every conversation, every smile, every accusation, searching for where I'd gone wrong. Maybe I'm just too much, I whispered to myself one bleak morning, the coffee cooling untouched in my hands. But deep inside, a small, stubborn voice refused to be silenced. This couldn't be how it ended. I had given everything for this family, not for praise, but for love. And yet here I was, cast out, doubted, isolated. The bitterness of that truth burned fiercely, igniting something I hadn't expected. Not surrender, but defiance. One evening, as rain pattered softly against the window pane, I sat alone in the dim light of my bedroom. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. Daniel's presence beside me was soothing, but even he hesitated now, the worry in his eyes unmistakable. "I hate seeing you like this," he said softly. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Me too," I confessed. "But I don't know how to fix it anymore." His hand reached for mine, grounding me in the storm. "You're not the problem, Sandy. They're scared of what they can't control." I wanted to believe him, but the doubt clawed at me relentlessly. Still, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself to be met with betrayal. Something had to change. I just didn't yet know what. The day I planned to finally share my lottery win with the family was supposed to be a turning point, a moment to claim my place without fear. Instead, it became the day everything collapsed. Gathering everyone in the sunlit living room of the lake house, I took a deep breath and prepared to speak. That's when Dolores stepped forward, her smile a twisting blade. "Before Sandy talks about money," she said loudly, "let's clear something up." She held up a stack of papers, her voice dripping with triumph. "I legally own the lake house." A stunned hush fell over the room. I blinked at her, heart plummeting. "What?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. She grinned, eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. "Years ago, I forged the signatures, yours included, and sold off parts of the property without anyone knowing. It's netted me $150,000, all while Sandy was busy paying a mortgage on a house that wasn't hers." Gasps rippled through the family. Faces I once trusted twisted in shock and disbelief. I felt the walls close in, my stomach twisting sickeningly. The house I'd kept as my secret leverage, my safety net, was gone, stripped away by the very person I thought was family. Dolores basked in the shock, her voice loud and gloating. "Looks like the only thing Sandy owns is a pipe dream." My hands trembled, nails digging into my palms. The hopeful daughter I had been, clinging to faith in family, shattered right then, replaced by a cold, unyielding clarity. I couldn't trust them. I couldn't trust her, and I couldn't afford to be blind anymore. Later that night, alone in the quiet sanctuary of my bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and let the truth wash over me, a brutal tide of betrayal and loss. Every sacrifice I'd made, every kindness overlooked, every moment of hope now felt like a lie I'd told myself. The anger that rose within me wasn't wild or chaotic. It was sharp, focused, a controlled blaze fueled by years of quiet suffering. I thought about how Dolores had been weaving this web of envy and deceit behind my back for so long. It wasn't just a one-time betrayal. It was the painful summit of a lifetime of manipulation. The family I had dreamed of was never real. They were actors playing roles that excluded me, and I had been naive to believe otherwise. In the stillness, I remembered the will clause Grandpa had left me, the one granting me sole ownership of the family business. Unlike the lake house, that power was clear, legal, and undisputed. It had always been there, waiting quietly beneath the surface like a secret weapon. Now, I saw it with new eyes, not just as a piece of paper or a clause, but as a means to reclaim control, respect, and justice. The realization filled me with a cold determination. No longer the invisible caregiver, I was ready to become the force they never expected. Never again would I be powerless or unseen. The fire inside me burned steady and strong, fueled by a promise I whispered to myself, never again. That night, I sat across from Daniel at the kitchen table, the soft glow of the lamp casting long shadows. His eyes searched mine, filled with concern and quiet resolve. "It's time to stop waiting for them to see me," I said with a calm firmness I hadn't known I possessed before. Daniel nodded slowly. "What's the plan?" he asked, his voice steady but cautious. I explained my idea, to leverage my control over the family business's contracts and assets to establish a legal and financial foothold. We talked through strategies, possibilities, and the risks. Dolores was the obvious target, but this wasn't about revenge. It was about setting boundaries, protecting what was rightfully mine, and stopping her manipulation once and for all. Daniel reached across the table, clasping my hand with quiet strength. "I'm with you," he said simply. The weight of that support settled around me like armor. We began gathering documents, reviewing contracts, and reaching out to trusted experts. Every signed agreement, every ledger page could be a piece in the puzzle to checkmate Dolores's schemes. In that moment, I wasn't just a defeated woman anymore. I was a strategist, a protector, a fighter. The war was only beginning, and I was ready to meet it head-on, with clear eyes and steady hands. Justice wasn't just a word anymore. It was my path forward. I sat at the kitchen table late into the night, surrounded by stacks of papers, folders, and a laptop glowing faintly in the dim light. The more I dug, the clearer the picture became. Dolores's reach into the family's finances was deeper than I had imagined. The family business, once a source of pride and unity, had become a battlefield of manipulation. Contracts for vendors, payroll approvals, even decisions on equipment purchases all required my sign-off. That control was a lifeline, a thread I could pull to untangle the mess Dolores had woven. I found emails where she'd tried to coerce family members into giving her loans, often cloaked in false urgency or guilt. There were messages pressuring vendors for discounts that suspiciously ended up benefiting her personal accounts. My hands trembled when I stumbled across unauthorized bank withdrawals labeled under her name, and worse, forged signatures that made it look like I had approved them. The betrayal stabbed deeper with every discovery, but anger was tempered by a cold clarity. I drafted notes, cataloging each piece of evidence carefully, knowing this was the foundation I needed. I reached out to a lawyer specializing in family business disputes and estate law. When she reviewed the wills, contracts, and property claims, her calm professionalism was a balm to my frayed nerves. "Dolores has overstepped," she said plainly, laying out options for legal action, but also cautioning patience. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and renewed determination. The lake house might have slipped from my grasp, but control of the company, my grandfather's legacy, was still mine, unequivocally. The family depended on that business far more than it depended on any of their petty grudges. Late that night, I whispered to myself, "This ends here." The room felt thick with the scent of coffee and paper, the quiet hum of the refrigerator my only companion. I realized that for years, I had been the silent backbone, the one who held everything together without complaint. Now, finally, they would see and feel the cost of tearing me down. The stakes were higher than family drama. This was about justice, about protecting what was rightfully mine. I was no longer just a caretaker. I was becoming a force to be reckoned with. In the days that followed, I carefully documented everything, every suspicious transaction, every suspicious text and voicemail. I printed copies, secured digital files, and began drafting a timeline of Dolores's betrayals. Each piece was a thread in the tapestry of deceit she'd woven, and I was ready to unravel it, stitch by stitch, until the truth shone through. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was fighting for the family I wished we could have been. The weeks stretched out in a blur of quiet, calculated preparation. I changed passwords on all shared accounts, updated security protocols, and locked down digital files with a precision I never imagined I'd master. Every legal document was reviewed and re-reviewed by my lawyer, who sent me updated drafts of notices and warnings I would need to deliver eventually. With Daniel's steady presence beside me, we mapped out every step, careful not to alert Dolores or any other family members. The storm was building silently beneath the surface, and I needed calm on the outside to keep from tipping my hand. At family gatherings, I wore my mask well, smiling politely, offering kind words, and staying just distant enough to avoid Dolores's traps. She was oblivious to the tightening noose, still gloating about her latest victories with an arrogance that made my skin crawl. But inside, I was a volcano simmering, ready to erupt at the right moment. The contrast between her brashness and my calm control was stark, and I could see the subtle unease creeping into her eyes when I refused to rise to her bait. Daniel and I reviewed every detail meticulously. Patience is our greatest weapon, he reminded me one evening, as we sat poring over documents and schedules. Timing will be everything. His quiet confidence was the anchor I clung to when doubt crept in. We practiced conversations, rehearsed responses, and planned exits. The house was filled with the low hum of strategy meetings, the scratch of pen on paper, the soft clicks of keys as I secured files. Outside, life went on, but behind closed doors, I was a time bomb, silent, deliberate, ready to detonate the truth when the moment was right. I noticed how family members treated me differently now, not with open hostility, but with a subtle shift, an unspoken question mark hanging between us. Their eyes flicked to me with a mixture of confusion and respect I hadn't seen before. I didn't give them the satisfaction of revealing the storm inside. Instead, I held my head high, my voice steady, and my smile calm. The calm before the storm was a strange kind of peace, quiet, tense, but necessary. I was gathering strength, and the reckoning would come soon enough. One afternoon, as I sorted through an old box of family papers in the guest bedroom, a distant cousin, Maggie, knocked softly on the door. She slipped inside, clutching a thick folder like a lifeline. "I thought you should see this," she whispered, eyes darting nervously. I opened the folder, hands steady despite the sudden rush of adrenaline. Inside were emails, contracts, and bank statements, documents that shattered everything I thought I knew. There it was, a secret alliance between Dolores and my own brother, Mark. Years of collusion, siphoning money out of the family business, manipulating assets to line their pockets while pretending to be loyal family members. Mark's role had been the cruelest betrayal, his feigned neutrality now exposed as a calculated performance. I stared at the evidence, heart pounding, breath catching. The familiar ache of betrayal twisted even deeper, sharper. Two traitors working in tandem meant the stakes were far higher than I'd imagined. "How long has this been going on?" I asked Maggie, voice barely above a whisper. She shrugged helplessly. "As long as anyone can remember. Mark's always been close to Dolores, but no one suspected this." The room felt colder, the walls closing in with the weight of secrets. I folded the papers carefully, suppressing the surge of anger and grief. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was a calculated theft of trust and legacy. My resolve hardened in that moment. Two traitors meant I had to be twice as vigilant, twice as ruthless. The betrayal cut me to the bone, but it also ignited a fierce determination. I wouldn't just fight Dolores. I would expose every lie, every act of deception. The stakes had changed, and so had I. No more illusions, no more blind faith. This was war, and I was ready to claim victory, not for revenge, but for justice. With the new evidence burning a hole in my pocket, I began my first moves in the battle for control. The morning air was crisp as I sat at my desk, fingers poised over the keyboard. I froze Dolores's access to all family business accounts, revoking permissions and changing authorizations. Mark was stripped of any decision-making role he held under the guise of family trust. I drafted formal legal notices, citing multiple contract violations and demanding immediate restitution. Each action was precise, deliberate, designed to send a clear message that the days of unchecked manipulation were over. Word began to ripple through the family grapevine. Whispers of trouble at the top floated in hushed tones, but no one connected the dots. Dolores confronted me one evening at a family dinner, her voice trembling with false outrage. "You think you can just take everything from me?" she hissed, eyes wild. I met her gaze calmly, my voice cold and professional. "I'm protecting what's mine, Dolores. It's long overdue." The steel in my tone was unmistakable, and I saw her falter, the mask slipping for a brief moment. Daniel stood quietly behind me, his presence a silent shield. He caught my eye and nodded, recognizing the transformation that had taken place. The woman who had been underestimated, dismissed, and pushed aside was gone. In her place stood someone unyielding, clear-eyed, and unwavering. This was only the beginning, but already the battlefield had shifted. I was no longer a silent victim. I was a strategist, a protector, and most importantly, a force that would no longer be ignored. The tension in the room was palpable, charged with unspoken challenges and simmering resentments. Yet, beneath the surface, I felt a rare clarity. Every step I took was a stride toward reclaiming my dignity and securing the future Grandpa had envisioned. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt in control. The quiet before the next move settled around me like a promise. This fight was far from over, but I was ready. The day of reckoning arrived with a weight I could almost taste in the air. The room filled quickly. Relatives, lawyers, even a few strangers who'd heard rumors. Dolores sat stiffly, eyes darting, her usual smugness replaced by a pale, brittle tension. Mark shuffled beside her, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool paper of the evidence folder steady in my hands. This was it. The moment I'd built towards silently, stubbornly, for months. "I've called this meeting to address what's been hidden for too long," I began, voice clear despite the pounding in my chest. I laid out the forged signatures, the unauthorized withdrawals, the secret partnership between Dolores and Mark, a poison brewed behind the family's back. As I spoke, I watched their faces unravel. Dolores's skin turned ashen. Mark's stammer grew louder, desperate to interject, but I held the floor, unwavering. These actions are a betrayal not just of me, but of everything our family stands for. Whispers erupted, some shocked, others angry. The legal counsel nodded gravely, confirming the validity of the evidence. "The business shares its profits and responsibilities," I said, voice firm, "but only when those shares are earned, respected, and honest." The room felt charged, the air thick with tension and realization. For the first time, I wasn't the overlooked cousin or silent nurse. I was the one wielding power, demanding respect. The truth was no longer a whisper. It was a declaration, and everyone saw it. Dolores's eyes locked on mine, a mixture of fear and fury. "You think you can just take it all?" she spat. I met her gaze steadily. "I'm reclaiming what was promised to me. No more lies. No more theft." The room shifted, family lines redrawn, alliances tested. The champagne moment I'd imagined was raw, jagged, and real. The woman no one expected to stand up was standing tall, and the family business, the legacy Grandpa entrusted me with, was finally mine to protect. The aftermath hit faster than I anticipated. Almost immediately, Dolores and Mark found their access frozen, bank accounts locked, credit lines cut off, and legal restrictions tightening like a noose. Their frantic messages flooded my phone, apologies dripping with insincerity, desperate pleas for meetings they knew I wouldn't grant. Each ping felt like a reminder of their crumbling empire, but I stayed silent, refusing to give them any foothold. The power I held wasn't just about money. It was control, respect, and boundaries. Other family members, once complicit or unaware, began to question the narrative they'd been fed. I noticed tentative glances during gatherings, whispered questions asked behind closed doors. They sought my counsel, a shift so subtle yet undeniable. The balance of power had irreversibly tipped, and the family network, once a source of comfort, now strained under the weight of truth and accountability. I felt the brittle fractures spreading, a testament to the cost of betrayal, but also the necessity of justice. Dolores's desperation grew palpable. She escalated her tactics with a frenzy that bordered on theatrical, public accusations of betrayal, tearful phone calls staged for sympathy, and a growing chorus of relatives coaxed into her victimhood narrative. Mark's threats arrived too. Legal letters alleging breach of trust, warnings to back off or face ruin. But I was ready. Every contract, every email, every ledger page was armor that deflected their assaults. Their efforts were futile against the mountain of evidence and legal safeguards I'd secured. Some family members reached out quietly, their voices tinged with regret for past doubts. I listened without bitterness, setting firm boundaries that felt like shields rather than walls. I wasn't here to rebuild bridges with those who'd turned a blind eye, only to protect what was mine and what was right. Dolores and Mark's isolation widened, their influence unraveling thread by thread. The once vibrant web of alliances had become a barren battlefield where their power was broken, their voices reduced to whispers drowned by truth. Weeks turned to months, and the attempts to manipulate me dwindled into silence. Dolores's public outbursts were met with polite detachment. Mark's legal threats dissolved into paperwork that only confirmed my position. The family's fractured loyalties slowly realigned. Apologies came, tentative and humble, from those who'd once doubted me. I accepted them quietly, but kept my distance. This wasn't about forgiveness, but about preserving the peace I'd fought so hard to claim. The isolation enveloping Dolores and Mark was a quiet victory, a closing chapter on their reign of deceit. I learned to navigate this new family landscape with care. Their power broken, Dolores and Mark faded into the background, their presence a mere shadow at gatherings I sometimes declined. When I did attend, it was on my terms, calm, composed, and unshaken. The mistakes of the past had forged a clearer path forward, one marked by respect, honesty, and boundaries that no one could cross without consequence. I felt a peace I hadn't known in years, a quiet freedom born from standing strong in the face of betrayal and reclaiming my rightful place. 6 months later, Daniel and I finally renovated our home, turning it into a sanctuary away from the storms. The family business thrived under the new rules I'd put in place, rules that protected not just me but others from manipulation and greed. Dolores and Mark remained excluded, their attempts to regain control utterly defeated. I wasn't present at every family event, and I didn't feel the loss. Instead, I cherished the moments I chose to share, knowing my worth no longer depended on their approval. I realized, finally, that family wasn't about blind sharing or unconditional access. It was about respect, honesty, and the courage to set boundaries. The freedom I felt wasn't loud or boastful. It was a steady, deep-rooted calm that settled over me like a warm light. I had learned to protect what mattered, and to honor myself above the empty dramas I'd once endured. For the first time, I was not just surviving. I was living fully, with dignity, clarity, and hope. And that was enough.